Well, hello. Welcome to Down the Donut Hole podcast on a Monday. It feels like it, too.
I got up very early this morning and I listened to the birds sing. And there was an appointment that I had this morning that got canceled. And so I just took it easy. I got a few little extra chores done. So I'm feeling really good for a Monday.
For now.
Yeah, the problem is it's been really, really hot and very humid here. And I don't do so well in that. I sort of wilt. But that nice, cool air this morning was just beautiful. And so I'm feeling really good and ready to go for another week. So
watch out.
Yeah, watch out. Yeah. That's right. This morning when I was out in the screen room where Calico Kelly, and her 4 kittens
She's very popular.
Oh, she is very popular, and everybody's been asking for an update. So I thought, you know what? I probably should be going over the news because certainly on Freaky Fridays we don't do much news, but I just can't bring myself to do it. I'm in too good of a mood. So I'll talk about Calico Kelly, and I'll also update everybody on the birds in the kitchen window, because that's kind of a cool story, too. And Kelly, the appointment that I had actually was with a cat rescue place who will help find homes for the kittens. And she will give them shots, weigh them, do all the important things. And they will help spay and neuter the kittens so that it's better for them to find home.
Maybe we can get her on the show.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
See if she doesn't mind that, maybe.
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
And Kelly herself will be spayed. A lot of folks have written in with questions about that, and I absolutely own that it's a little late and that her having kittens, a lot of people really view that as irresponsibility on our part. But I'd like to kind of walk through the decision-making on that. Kelly is semi-feral. She was full feral when she came, but she was a stringy little kitten. You know, she still is pretty small and pretty young. Crying outside our door in the screen room. And so we brought her in, we gave her a meal, we cleaned her up, and let her back out because that's where she wanted to go. And for the longest while, Kelly wouldn't come in without having the door propped open, so she knew she could make a hasty escape if she needed to.
She literally would have freaked out if we'd shut all the doors.
Oh, she hated it. Yeah. It evolved, sort of. It was kind of funny because we put a hole in the bottommost part of the screen in the kitchen. And so Kelly would come in through the front door into the screened room, and then she'd cut through the house and go out that back hole in the screen. So we had that there for quite a while when she just couldn't handle coming in. Yeah. That was back when the weather was cold. It was still winter, and some of those nights got down into the 30s. And so we were quite hoping that she would come in and just warm up or whatever. And that's sort of what began to happen. Dave put a little bend. We have a very rickety back door on this cottage, and so it's metal, and he bent a piece of the metal on the base of the door so that Kelly could come in and out.
Yeah, kind of a triangle, as it turned out, but it worked.
It worked. It's not working now, let me tell you, now that the 4 kittens have gotten their sea legs, because every chance they get, they want to go outside and explore. And we don't mind them exploring, but it has to be under supervision because they're still too little. And almost every night around here, you hear just a chorus of owls. And so with safety in mind, it's supervised play outside for the 4 kittens. And Kelly seems to understand what we're about, sometimes more than other times.
No, she's always going to be wary, I think. And my attitude on all that is that I think it's kind of cruel in a way. I mean, there's no perfect decision in anything that we consider to do or not to do. But I do think it's kind of cruel to keep an animal prisoner who has been used to being free. You know, that's, and it is nature after all. They're in more danger, sure, but that is the way of nature, I'm afraid.
Well, I don't have a problem with that as long as they're spayed and neutered. The time that we should have done that hit right around Thanksgiving and Christmas. We had visitors. There were a whole bunch of things, so we really couldn't focus on the little semi-feral cat who came and visited us. And I'm not in a position to take her to the vet because we use public transportation. So that's a whole aspect. We don't really have a big network of folks who can take us places here. And during those holiday weeks, it just wasn't working, and she would be very difficult to capture.
Oh, yeah.
She does not even now. She doesn't like.
Oh, she'd freak out. Put him in a cat carrier, I'm sure.
Yeah, to be scooped up. That's not something Kelly wants. We're closer to that, much closer to that now than we used to be, but back then, no. Anyway, right after Christmas in January and February, we had that big cold snap. And I thought, because she will not come inside the house and stay inside the house, I just didn't like the idea of her having surgery and then having to be out in the cold. And I couldn't bring myself to do it then. And I kept saying, okay, soon. The next thing I know, Kelly has a host of boyfriends. And I thought, well, we'll take her now. My life intervened in a big way, more visitors, that sort of thing. And so it got put off. And then I sort of reasoned, I realized she was probably pregnant. And I thought, I don't think it hurts a body to fulfill its purpose one time. And so we decided we'd just not worry about it. Kelly can have her kittens. We'll help find them homes. We'll make sure they're spayed and neutered. And herself, too. That's coming up. And we'll go forward. So...
Well, for one thing, a lot of these places that do this very necessary work are so overwhelmed that you cannot get any appointments for anything like that. Spay and neutering, especially because it requires a doctor.
Yeah.
And it could be a month or two or more.
Well, that's what the lady at the cat rescue place told me. She said it will be at least a month before they can look after Kelly. And before they adopt out the kittens, they will see to all of that, but that also takes time. Mm-hmm. So they were to have their shots, be weighed, sort of intake. I'm going to continue to foster them here as long as I can. I have some business trips coming up that's not going to work because I just physically won't be able to take
Yes, and a bunch of Down the Don't Hold podcast on the roads coming up. Very interesting stuff.
Some very interesting things. Anyway, a lot of folks have asked what the kittens are like. And so I thought I'll just give you a little snapshot of who everybody is. I have to say, I am a supremely happy person. They are delightful. I enjoy them. It's frustrating because they have to learn to use the litter pan because the kittens are blocked up. They're not allowed just to come and go like Kelly is. And so there's a little cleanup involved with that, which can be a little oppressive. I chalk that all up to it's not worse than all the pleasure I get. So it balances out, and pleasure is way more.
For now.
For now. I'll always say for now. I think that's the best way to approach things. But I will say, in their babyhood, there was one little black and white kitten whom we call Patch. Now, Patch seemed to need more care than the others, and I believe that somehow when they were all trapped in the big box, we graduated sizes of boxes after Kelly had the kittens. I left her just be because she didn't really want a lot of interference, and she didn't like when we were touching the kittens in those early days, so we didn't do it.
She would growl.
Yeah, she did kind of growl, this throaty sound. Mm-hmm. So I got some cold-cut turkey, and I just would feed her piece by piece, which she really liked that. And it kind of helped build up more trust. And so little by little, we could touch the kittens, very gingerly. But I noticed one morning that Patch, this little black and white guy, very fuzzy. Patch has longer fur than the rest of them. None of them look alike, really. His eye looked like he was holding it closed. And so I had a look, and it felt kind of crusty around there, and it hadn't been that way. They had had their eyes open, and everybody looked healthy and bright, shiny eyes. But that kind of concerned me. So I just took a little olive oil and rubbed the olive oil around both his eyes because he could feel that was kind of crusty. And I did that for a couple of days, and he seemed to seek out shady spots. So I put a blanket, a cover over the back of that big box. And so that gave him a place he could go so that the sunlight wasn't direct. It was still cool out there, so that all worked out. And after a while, it took a couple of weeks, but every day I was seeing an improvement. And so Patch was kind of secretive back in there. But I made sure to pet Patch and give Patch as much attention as I did the others. But it was minimal all the way around because Kelly wasn't having it. And so there was Patch. There's a very Siamese little one there. When they were first born, there's two that have very Siamese characteristics. And one is whiter than the other, but in the early days, they both looked white, almost pink. And so the one had darker ears, tail, and feet, and then the other one has the fur is a bit subtly mottled. So we call the one, we've settled on Carob, the one with the chocolate-colored ears, tail, and feet. And the other one we've been calling Smidge, because she's got a smidge of this color and a smidge of that. So Smidge, or Midge, she's a troublemaker, that Midge. She's in the thick of every kind of an altercation or tussle, or she disappears. She's somebody you don't turn your back on because Smidge can think of naughty stuff to do. And she's very naturally a leader. So she lures the other kittens to do stuff and to climb and to jump up from thing to thing and be adventurous, which is cute. Oh, it is so cute. And she's cute, too. She's got the same little smudge on her nose that Calico Kelly does. So that's very nice.
So, Carob, what's the point? You were saying something about point with the color.
Well, I'm learning.
Reference.
See, I don't know a lot about cats. So everybody who has written in and taught me things, I want you to know it's so appreciated because I'm learning. I'm learning as I go. I'm making decisions that seem like the right way to move forward. But everybody, your comments are so welcome, and they help me so much. And I feel the love. And what especially pleases me is I know you are inspired by love of kitties in general, but also love for Kelly and her kittens. And that joins us. So across
I just realized I shouldn't have said, what's the point? That's easily misinterpreted. I mean, that's one of the descriptors about how their markings are.
Yes.
So explain that again.
Well, the Siamese ones, what I'm understanding is there are several different types. Now, at first, somebody locally told me that Kelly, the one we're now calling Carob, was a flame point Siamese. But upon further study and the realization that his ears are like a muted chocolate, they're more like a milk chocolate or a Carob. So we've been calling him Carob. We went through a series of names. First, we just said flame, but it did seem wrong because there's no orange on him or reddish color. And
so you could call him a Carob point, sort of.
Yeah, Carob point is kind of good, yeah. or milk chocolate point. His fur is the color of a mushroom, kind of. It's It's kind of a tawny
A
tan.
mushroom point? What? I don't know.
Oh, Cara Point's kind of cool.
Okay.
Anyway, so his body is kind of this beautiful tawny tan color. And then he has those soft little brown ears, tail, and boots. And that cat loves me. That little kitten will come and sit on my lap, and every night he curls in. He tries to get in under my arm when I sit in the chair out in the screen room, now that the weather is good for that. And he cuddles in, and he's just as cute as he can be. He lets me turn him upside down, stroke his little belly, and I say him, I believe him, but I'm not 100% sure. Everybody's a little too immature for...
So you're not a sexing expert.
No.
That also could be taken the wrong way. So, sorry.
No, I have to admit, I'm just a newbie with all of this, and I'm learning as I go.
Would that be a sexpert? People that know how to do that?
Dave!
I guess. I don't know.
Anyway, so he's very cute. Sassy, the one we call Sassy, is the smallest of the four, and she looks like a little tabby with a white underside and a white garter on her front left leg, I think. I had seen a big gray cat out in the woods that also had a garter, so I wonder if that isn't Sassy's daddy. Now, Sassy earned her name, not because she's hissy or anything like that, but because she seems a little bit reluctant to accept boundaries and limits. If there's anybody that's going to crawl in under places you don't want them, that'll be Sassy.
And that's the one you said that came walking out first when they disappeared that time?
Yeah.
Before they could walk.
Yeah, and out comes Sassy. Sassy, I can credit for helping us to find where Kelly had hidden the kittens in the screen room. And that, I'll just run by that story in case you didn't hear it. One Sunday, it was horrific weather here. Stormy, rainy. We didn't have hail, thankfully, but it was all day long, just one downpour after another. We went down to check the kittens first thing in the morning. They were gone. Kelly was gone. Everybody was gone. I was heartbroken. I took it as a personal lack of negligence on my part for not having anticipated that this could happen. After a while, Kelly shows up, and she's snoozing around and primming herself around on the rug. And then every now and then, we were searching everywhere inside for those kittens. Des came by. He walked all over the property in the pouring rain, calling Kelly. She loves him. She loves everybody. And she will come when he calls her because he usually brings her treats. So he was calling around and before she came. And then we were stationing people in the windows of the house to see where Kelly was going. So that would give us a clue as to where those kittens were, because they were still really young when this happened. They had to be maybe 4 weeks old, if 4 weeks old. Anyway, the day progressed. Kelly was participating in our search. She'd kind of follow along, and a couple of times I have one of those 5-gallon buckets, and I have all the gardening tools kind of in there. And at one point, she went over and stood up with her paws on the top edge of that bucket, and she looked in like she was searching for the kittens herself, which made us even more nervous for their well-being. And so around and around we went, and then she'd disappear, but nobody could catch which direction she was going because we'd all be distracted as we were in our assigned lookout posts. Anyway, after supper, it was getting to be evening, and I was really worried because I just thought, oh, they're going to get owled. That's it. They're going to get snapped up and be some owlet's breakfast or something in the morning. And I was outside when all of a sudden the security light, the motion sensor went on inside the screen room, and out hikes Kelly, who hadn't been in there. Or so I thought. After a bit, I went back in and I thought, she must be hiding out in here somewhere. And I thought, looked everywhere. Well, I was over in the far corner of the room where we had a stack of 1x3s and some cut-off pieces just thrown over in the corner, kind of propped up out of the way in the corner. And all of a sudden, out comes Sassy, walking. And I didn't know that they could really walk yet because I hadn't seen anything like that in the box that we were keeping them in. And so out comes Sassy, and I went over and investigated that corner. Sure enough, Kelly had moved them all out of the box and into that corner. And that was a really bad idea because there was a big dresser there that if they had kind of scooted in under there, I don't know how we would have got them out of there because the dresser is really heavy, and we would not have been able to move that without really taking a serious risk of harming one of the kittens had they got in under there. Thankfully, they hadn't. But to extract them from there, I first went and got a bigger box, put some nice clean blankets in there that I have, and then piece by piece, sort of like a Tetris game, so nothing would fall. I removed all of those cut-off pieces of wood from some projects that we had just been doing, moved them out of the way, and finally I got down there. The other kittens weren't really scooting around like Sassy was. And she's so little and so cute, and she has the cutest little face and these little round eyes. And she conveys just cheerfulness. There's something about Sassy that's terribly cheerful. And if she were a person, I would suggest that she had a very happy-go-lightly personality and just a fun personality. She comes off as the most fun of all of them. So Smidge is the most mischievous, very energetic, very athletic, and so that's kind of her persona. And she's a little harder to be social with. She'll come and sit and let me pet her and things like that, but only for a minute. But I don't think it's because she doesn't like us or doesn't like being handled so much as that she's got other stuff she would rather do. Then Patch, very furtive, and I think part of that is because of the way the injury to his eye. I think he just kind of preferred being in more shady places. And he's very apt to, I say he, I'm not sure, to, go off on his own. And he is the only one of the four that has a short tail. So his tail, right now, it looks like it's longer in proportion to his body than Kelly's is in proportion to her body. So it might be slightly longer than Kelly's, but I'm wondering if that perspective will change as he grows a little bit because he too has the short tail. So
maybe they grow into it and the proportions will be, more like what Kelly is now.
Yeah, because Kelly's is a very short tail. Kelly's is just a little smidge of a tail. So hers is probably an inch or two. And this one, it looks like maybe slightly longer than that. But Patch runs funny. Kelly has kind of a bunny run. Her movements are just funnier. And the Patch does too. Patch, I think, is perfectly named because one side of his facial markings look like Kelly's cowl, sort of. Kelly has that cowl, or almost a half cowl, around her eye and forehead area. The little one, Patch, that cowl is only complete on one side. The other side is round with black around the eye. So a white space, and then a black patch inside
Maybe get
that.
Some individual photos of them up on Shorts at some point.
Yeah, I think what I'll try to do is I'll try to do a portrait gallery of Calico Kelly's kittens and an update on what Calico Kelly is looking now that she's become a mama. So, let me think. Patch, Smidge, Sassy, and Carob. Carob seeks us out. When I come out, no matter what I'm talking about, or if he hears my voice, he comes running over, which is nice. It's very verifying. They're eating food now. They're using a litter box. I'm just going outside and getting sand because I don't know whether they'll be coming back here and being a colony out there. As long as they're spayed and neutered, I don't know. Or whether they'll be adopted. Those decisions will be made not just by us, but by the lady who is helping out with all of the spaying and the neutering and all of those things that can add up if you're paying for them. And I just am not in a position at this point to do that. Kelly herself, as a mom, she's been pretty good. Pretty good. And I don't give her 100% on that because Kelly, as I've said many times, is very young herself. And I think sometimes she feels a little bit jealous, I'll be honest, of all the attention that gets lavished on the kittens. Our grandson, our little 2-year-old grandson came, and he loved to pull up a stool and look in the box with all the kittens. And I really think that the timing of all of that was perfect because he couldn't reach down in there to pick the kittens up himself. He needed help doing that, and we all let him and let him touch the kitties, but no contact on his own. It's just not worth it. And Kelly wasn't keen on that, especially with him having pulled up the stool next to the box. You could tell that wasn't something she was terribly tickled about. And when I try to brush the kittens just really gently, one at a time, every day, just gently brush them because I think it helps them to enjoy the grooming. And I will say, I don't think Kelly is overly fastidious about grooming her kittens. Occasionally, you'll see her, bestow a couple of licks on her kittens, but not very much.
No, she does the basics, kind of, okay.
Yeah, she does.
Just enough.
Yeah, just enough. And
what was also interesting about Kelly is that she will not play.
No, she does not.
I try to roll a ball for her and all that. Nope.
She does not. Mm-mm. She never has played, which makes me feel a little bad for her because I get the impression that maybe Kelly was out on her own way before she should have. And so I don't think it's in her to play. Now, this I thought was interesting. Kelly, semi-feral, I'm never going to say, or at least not for a long time, that we've kind of earned her trust to the degree that she's left that behind. I don't think she ever will. But the other night, she came to this little bend in the door that Dave fixed for her. And I keep, it's this piece of styrofoam over that so that the kitties can't go. And oops, sorry about that. No, I need my thing. Anyway, so I keep that styrofoam over the hole in the door, and I heard Kelly out there. She kind of trills, and so I went out there. And I try to schedule these outdoor breaks for her, pretty close together, so she never has to go very long without being able to go outside. Well, she comes back, and she's trying to stuff something through that little hole in the bottom that she can easily crawl through. I say little. In proportion to the door, it's little, but it's plenty big enough for old Kelly, except when she was in the final stages of her pregnancy, and then we just propped the door open so she could come and go if she wanted to. Anyway, here she is. She's got something big she's trying to stuff through. Well, I did a head count very quickly because by then the kittens were out, kind of running around the place all the time. Nope, 4 kittens. So it wasn't a kitten who had escaped without me noticing. Here it is, a squirrel. She's trying to bring a squirrel in. And I understand that is her nature. She is trying to feed those babies with something she's hunted. And I wasn't quite sure what to do because I didn't really want to deal with that. So I said, well, okay, I'll just discourage it. So I just kind of blocked off the door, and scooted the squirrel, dead, off to the side by the fence. And then at night, the kittens went in the big box. And at that point, they still couldn't really get out of the box because we taped the sides way up high so that it was too high for them to jump. So we got the kittens all boxed up at nighttime, went to bed, came in the next morning. Kelly had that squirrel in the house, and it was pretty much finished. I'll put it like that. And so that was an interesting thing and kind of an eye-opener. So she still has her wild tendencies. She still wants to be brushed at least once every day, and she does not like it if any of the kittens are in the chair when we do that. That is her me time, and she deserves her me time. And I enjoy it too because, it's a nice little bond, and I just feel so relaxed and so happy. Whether I'm playing with the kittens or they're curled up asleep or even just watching them play, it's so delightful. I have to say, it is so delightful. And I consider it blessings. Every day I close our podcast with Count Your Blessings. Well, I can tell you, I got 5 right there, and that's not the end of my blessings. I have another thing.
I hope not.
Oh, no, you're my blessing too, honey. And our kids and all of that. No, I consider myself a very blessed person. Now, I have a correction to make. A while back, I talked about these little birds. They look like a little wren, and I haven't been able to get a good enough picture yet for me to be able to do the research to identify what little birds. Nesting in the kitchen window. It's a Dahlia seed window. I have a screen, and I taped around the outer edges of the screen with white tape because it doesn't fit perfectly, and I'm not going to invest in a screen for that because I just am not going to do it right now. I have other priorities, better ones. And that window is always open just a little bit. We put plastic over that window on the inside during the really blustery cold months because the draft coming through there was just, so unpleasant. Well, I told everybody that I thought that those little birds, the male and the female, had abandoned that nest in part because I couldn't resist pulling up that plastic and peeking in there as they were building the nest. And I'm busy in the kitchen a lot of the time, and so I thought they probably have found more peaceful quarters and have chosen a different site and are just going to forego this. Now, the nest looks like a pile of wind-blown leaves that have been trapped up in there. When you see it, if you're thinking nest, a nice little organized bowl, no, that's not what we're talking here. We're talking a tall heap of dried leaves and twigs and grassy tops, things like that. And it's probably from the base to the top, 10 inches, 12 inches, something like that. And the extent of it, side to side, is probably more like 14 inches. So, a foot high by 14 or 15 inches wide. And I thought it was quite interesting as they were building it because there's only a little hole about the size of a silver dollar in this pile. And if you look at it from the outside out into the yard looking in, it does look like just a messy pile of wind-blown leaves. It looks the same from the inside through the screen. So anyway, I saw nothing happen, and things were, there had been a lot of activity, and then all of a sudden nothing. Well, I told everybody that they had moved on. I hadn't heard anything because the nest building was a noisy proposition. The 2 birds communicated a lot. A few days later, after I said that, I was going to take the plastic off the window. And lo and behold, the mama bird was sitting on the nest in there. All I could see was her little face peeking out of that little silver dollar-sized hole. I thought, wow, this is great. Well, that went on for days. The daddy bird would bring her food and then fly away. Then he'd bring her food and fly away. And that went on for, several days. Now, I don't see him as much, I don't believe, because I really can't tell the difference between the male bird. These are the size of a little wren, and they have a stripe. They're quite brown. They look like almost the color of toast just before it burns. And they have a little line from their eye back, toward the back of their head on the sides. And so I'm going to do better research now, if I can get a good picture so I can really compare it. And quite a thin, sharp beak. Anyway, now mama bird is off that nest. I hear a lot of little cheeping in there. And so the babies have hatched, and I think both parents, the mom for sure, is out bringing food back to these baby birds. And up until yesterday, she would pretty much disappear into the nest to feed these birds. You'd see her come with a little worm or a caterpillar or something in her beak. And then the last day, yesterday and today, she doesn't go in the nest. She hangs on. There's one of those Spanish grill work, kind of a pretty thing on that window on the outside. And she hangs on to that grill work and cheeps. Every time she has brought food to her babies, she sings first. And I wonder if she isn't signaling safety, as if to say, hey, it's me, don't worry. I'm approaching the nest with some food. It's just me, don't worry. Now, she still sings, but she does not stick her head in the nest. She causes those baby birds to reach their head out of that little silver dollar-sized hole and take the food from her with their head poking out of the nest. So they're still largely protected, but she's urging them out into the big world just a little bit at a time. And I think it's interesting that they respond to that audible cue when she sings when she comes to the nest. And after she goes, they peep around for a few minutes, the babies do, because they're alone in there. Now, I was going to remove that plastic so that I could get better pictures and take some video. But every time I try to do that, she gets so nervous. She just flies away. And so I have a shadow play, if you want to look at it that way, of this feeding process of the babies back there. I do have some video, but it's through not especially clear plastic. It's more of a white, kind of a filmy plastic. It has a certain charm.
Yeah.
It has a certain charm, I think, but it's not very good about revealing detail. But you get the gist of things, and you get to hear the little birds peeping around in there. And so I'm very pleased with it. We had a scare. Oh, my God.
You're not going to talk about that one, are you?
I wasn't going to, but I'm going to. Because with all of these wonderful tales of the natural world that are happening right in my household,
Yeah.
it isn't all idyllic.
Oh, no. Nature is brutal.
It is brutal.
Yeah.
And this has a happy ending, but not for me. All right. I went out the back door. This kitchen it used to be a back porch, is what I gather. And we have it all painted up and set up, like, as I've said before, like an RV kitchen. Very small, very modest. It's not a small room. It's about a 10 by 10 room, and there's a big exterior
it's
door.
12 feet square.
Okay.
But it couldn't have been a porch because it's all concrete block for the walls and a huge concrete slab for the floor.
And concrete stairs
Yeah.
going outside. So very, very sturdy room. I went out that back door and I just left it open. I thought, oh, I'll just air out the room. But it was after dark. And I came back in and closed it up. And there's 2 doors. There's a big Spanish grillwork door that screening has been applied to it, and that's where the little hole that we made for Kelly to sneak in and out when she was too scared to be anywhere around without a clear exit plan. Anyway, that's there. And then there's a big inner door. But that door, I don't think was ever really meant to fit there. And so there's a little gap at the bottom, but I've never worried about it. Anyway, we were in the living room. It was late. How late?
I'm pretty late.
Going for
10:30 or something.
Yeah, almost time for the 11 o'clock local news. Anyway, we'll go in there. Something's moving. A snake.
In the windowsill.
In the windowsill.
Yeah.
On the inside. I about croaked. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, and I said, "Oh, it must be just outside, right? Just outside." Oh, no, it's in
It
here.
had come in when I left that door open after dark. It looked to me like a guarded snake.
Yeah, it was harmless, but it was clearly after the birds. And,
Yes, but it couldn't get them because I had that ill-fitting screen taped with the white duct tape all the way around. So we scooted
had
him
you
along.
taken it off, like you spoke earlier, then that would be a different story.
Well, that's in 2 stages. It wasn't the plastic that kept that snake away from the birdies. It was the fact that I had so securely taped that screen in the window frame. 'Cause I just wanted to close it up. I didn't want any mosquitoes to get in. And the room was painted white. So the white duct tape just gives you a little bit of security. And oh boy, was I happy I did that. Anyway, he got flipped out of there and then out the door and gone.
Yeah, he was hustled out.
Yes, he was. In not in the most gentle way because
No.
I was in just total panic. So then the next morning, I had all kinds of mopping and sanitizing to do because just the idea that it was in there. So I don't like that. Anyway, birdies are well. They're growing wonderfully.
And,
you might even be able to hear them in the background.
Probably don't need to even point this out, but then the Kelly hole is no more.
No, so poor old Kelly, the unwanted visitor, which probably would have happened sooner or later anyway.
We really should be doing a wildlife show, I guess.
I
If you're
know.
living out in the bush and in a semi-tropical climate,
I know.
you're going to get these stories.
Anyway, I love it so much. I've loved seeing the azaleas blooming. The wisteria has come and gone. I love the perfumes that hang in the air. I love hearing the little birdies cheeping. I love seeing Kelly and her babies growing. And I just enjoy this time of year. And I've been going around the property looking for pretty flowering native plants, and I'm collecting those and putting those in my garden because I'm gone a lot of the time. And so if I put native flowering plants in my little rock garden, then they will take care of themselves for the most
I miss
part.
the geckos and the tiny little frogs who we haven't seen because of a million cats here now.
No, not well. The little babies have not been out hunting. Kelly, yes, I have seen her many times with the geckos. The little frogs, I've seen them more lately, and the ones they sound like they quack, if you can believe it. Yeah, like that. It sounds kind of like that, and especially after a rain, you hear them quacking out there. Which I used to think it was some kind of a bird, and
They're so small that for the longest time we didn't know what they were.
No.
So I just called them the duck things.
the duck things. They're about the size of a a little bigger than a quarter, maybe a 50-cent piece, all in. In bright
Forgot
green
about
with the
the
cutest
cash.
little eyes.
I mean, who has coins anymore, really?
I know. You know what? We are just about out of time. So I've been updating everybody on all the wildlife around here. Count your blessings, because I am certain that you have as many or maybe even more than I do. It's hard to keep up. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye.